My guest today is Mahesh Jayaraman, who is the co-founder of Sepalika. Sepalika is a women's fertility and hormone health clinic, which has helped many women heal naturally from PCOS, infertility, and hormonal imbalance. And I'm really excited to have Mahesh here especially because I like the part where he blends deep science and mind-body healing, which is very close to my heart as well, especially emotional and energy healing. So that's what we're going to talk about. And because I also believe that true fertility, just like true healing, is so much more beyond biology. And, we sort of go from there. Welcome, Mahesh. So excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Anandita. It's such a pleasure. I know that we sort of move in the same spaces when it comes to healing, and we probably in the same part of the jungle, as it were. So I'm very happy to be speaking with a fellow traveler in those parts.
I really like that analogy because I also believe healing is a journey, whether as healers or, even if we are working with our clients or patients, it's still a journey for all of us. So, yes, so happy you are here. And I would like to start at the beginning. I mean, if you want to share a bit of your story, what led you to focus on women's health, especially, infertility. So, if you can just share a bit about that.
Okay. So, we were already working in hormones health. So now before that, actually, um, I almost 20 years ago, my practice used to be largely centered around acupressure, diet, and supplements. And this was all early days. Just, I think, Hyman must just be coining the term functional medicine around
When
that.
was this? Which year?
This was 2001.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, he was probably there in the term functional medicine. That's
yeah,
true.
yeah, yeah. So those days it wasn't such a catchword or a buzzword, and it was more an integrative approach. And I used to use modalities of acupressure, acupuncture primarily. I am over time. I'm also a government certified acupuncturist. So Maharashtra has an acupuncture council. So acupuncture is a particular modality that I practice. We also do magnet based acupressure. Your viewers may be interested. That little magnet that I have on palm, on the back of my palm, is a little stimulant that's going through the fascia, we believe, and the parts of the nervous system to help the energy balance. I've been getting some naughty and unnecessary old age acne, as it were. And this is a particular magnet point, governing vessel 3, that helps to address this. So, this is one of the modalities that I used to practice, and I used to use dietary supplements. Those early days, people thought even vitamin D3 was a terrible thing. Whether you got it from the sun or sun means, you'll end up with skin cancer. Taking a supplement means you'll end up with toxicosis. And that was the initial practice. But it was what it was. And I met Sharda, my business partner at Sepalika, that way. She probably came into my practice 10 years later from then. So around 2011 or so. She'd had, and this is a story she says publicly, so I don't, so I'm not breaching any confidentiality, but she used to have severe migraines and acidity. And that's something that she was struggling with. She had been to somebody in Mumbai who was a migraine expert, who had put her on some very strong medication, anti-convulsants, literally, for that. So Tegretol and so on, Lyrica and that family of medications. So, she had heard about me from somebody else whom I had helped. So she came to me and we helped her with vitamins, minerals, and acupuncture and acupressure. And that really, her migraines went away. She had suffered from it for more than a decade. And she said, I can't believe that this is, this exists in the world and we don't know about it. So can we please, take it out to more people? I said, sure, I'm happy to, but, I don't go around advertising. So however you want to do this, we can do this. So I started seeing some patients. I live in Delhi. My partner lives in Mumbai. So she said, will you please consult with my family? So I began visiting Mumbai. I'd see her family. They began to benefit. Then it became friends. It became a larger circle until finally she said, this is not okay that it's only limited to the people who can travel and see you. Can we do this online? And that's how basically the idea of Sepalika was born. And even at that stage, honestly, if you ask me, there's a saying that I resonate with in functional medicine, that the men only come when the parts fall off, but the women are there, much before that. So preventative health, women don't feel emasculated by prevention. men often feel like, that why am I being such a crybaby and why should I prevent anything? And I'll take care of it when it comes. So women naturally gravitated towards this sort of a holistic practice. So by natural selection, more of my patients were women. The husbands would be dragged in occasionally along with them, and that's how that went. But I also realized at that time itself, hormonal health and women, there was a lot of gaslighting happening even then. It's all in your mind. The uterus is Greek for hysteria and so on. And, you hear all this nonsense bandied about. So there was a lot of gaslighting happening even then. And women were also not given satisfactory solutions. They were literally often lifting the load of the home as well as the workplace. And yet there was very little support going for them. So that's how Sepalika was born, as a women's hormone health clinic. We decided that we would share with the world whatever we had learned: diet, lifestyle, mental practices, appropriate sleep, circadian rhythms. These are all things that can really help a woman make the most of her beautiful hormonal cycle through the month. Men just have testosterone throughout the month, but women have estrogen in the first half, progesterone in the second, and it's a far more complex and beautiful dance. And if you can align women to those hormonal ups and downs, they can get the most of their life, all aspects of their life. With that dream, Sepalika was born, and we were very clear that we wanted to keep it online for the most part. So we did awareness talks and other things offline, but we kept it online from the start. So we were in Zoom far before Corona, COVID, all of this. So we only did Zoom consults, and women were benefiting from everywhere. We ran a flagship PCOD program. We treated hundreds of women. We published a couple of studies as well on how the lifestyle, diet, and all these practices that we spoke about, holistic stuff, can make a difference. And with that, we began seeing that, one thing led to another. Some women with PCOS were able to reverse early stage type 2 diabetes, sometimes pre-diabetes, sometimes full-blown diabetes. And we weren't trying to fix it. We were only helping the body go back to its natural rhythms, but health outcomes occur naturally. Many of them fell pregnant as well, and which is what we realized. By this time, we had developed Sepalika for about 7, 8 years, and then COVID struck. And once COVID struck, everybody was homebound. And unfortunately, people weren't very interested in fixing their PCOD or diabetes or anything. It had become a doomsday sort of scenario where everybody said, Ki bachenge to we'll see what happens tomorrow. So all chronic health in that sense took a backseat. People were doing stuff at home. People began working out, doing things, but it had this other impact as well. The only part of the business that didn't suffer, the clinic, where we kept getting inquiries, was fertility. Because offline, people weren't able to do IUI cycles, go see their gynacs in person. IVF cycles were stalled because of Corona and, the whole lockdown and everything. So people said, can we work on our foundations while we wait for these cycles to come, for the world to open up again? So we began working with these women and couples, and lo and behold, several of them fell pregnant before the world opened up. So we said, Acha, theek hai. So there is maybe something to this as well. And that's basically how we began focusing on fertility largely. So we still do hormonal health. We do type 2 diabetes as a program. We do weight loss. We do PCOD. But Sepalika Fertility Clinic, because again, even within the generally gaslit women on the fertility journey are even more, told it's their fault. The man is rarely in the dock. One good sperm report and everything is okay. Now it's the woman's burden. She's the one taking the injections, going through hormonal treatments and all of it. And I said, this is something that is worth changing, or, trying to change, making an impact, giving people back their power. And that's basically where we are at right now, Sepalika Fertility. We have 65 odd babies now in the last 3 years, and we are quite happy with it.
That's amazing. What a beautiful story. What a beautiful journey, Mahesh. There's so many things you mentioned here. I think I would start with Sharda, whom I've met personally in Bombay. We both live in Bombay, so we haven't met in a while, but yes, she's become a friend of mine in that sense. So I'm so glad that she came to you. It's something that is meant to happen. Some of these meetings, and so these are just things that are meant to happen, and that's how Sepalika was born in that sense. And of course, we keep evolving, over time. So in a way, COVID helped to sort of move Sepalika in probably a different direction. And, that's, I think, the case with all of us, isn't it? Like we start somewhere and then sort of life takes us somewhere else or shows us another path, and it helps so many. So that's the amazing thing. And congratulations on all the babies. And in fact, you did send me, I mean, I don't know whether I shared this with you. You had referred one of your patients because she was also dealing with some autoimmune conditions, etc. And she came to me. She'll be coming on this show soon, actually, to share her story.
That's, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So also there's so many amazing, the impact that actually all of us have together is amazing. And you've touched upon some of these things. You've mentioned gaslighting. You've mentioned, it's a stigma, and especially for the woman. And as you said, it's usually the woman who's blamed for all this. Whether it doesn't matter who's actually at fault, and honestly, doesn't. I mean, I don't believe that focusing on the blame helps anyone really in any sense, right? So,
Absolutely.
what are the biggest misconceptions that couples have or families have when they come to you? I mean, I think I want our audience to probably know that they are not alone in all of this.
Sure. I think the first one is that, most people aren't even explained the basic statistics of fertility, right? So a couple's been trying for a short while, and these days it's usually later on in life. Nobody thinks of a family till their mid-30s, till the career is sort of settled. They've ticked off a few things from their bucket list. They've gone, snorkeling in the Maldives and something or the other, So there are things that we all like to do. And then we say, okay, fine, now we're ready to start a family. And you kind of think that it's going to happen in the first month or in the first few months, right? You think all this while you were using protection, and that's what prevented it from happening. And guess what? I get regular periods, so I should be able to conceive as soon as I, decide to start trying. That's the first misconception, right? So we may not behave like it, behave like the pinnacle of evolution, but nature seems to think about us like that. So fertility and pregnancy doesn't happen easily. So for a couple who is otherwise completely healthy in their mid-30s, the chances can vary between 1 in 5 to 1 in 7. Right? So you try for consecutive 5 months to 7 months, depending upon certain other facts and statistics. But that's the worldwide norm for how long it takes you to fall pregnant. But if you're already at 35 and you're collecting, entrance forms for Montessori somewhere because you've got your life all planned out for your kid, then there is a problem because, you think the clock is ticking. Nature doesn't know any clock is ticking. Nature is kind of making up her mind when is the right time. And that is the second part, right? So first is the statistics. Don't expect to get pregnant as soon as you try. Second one is that, it does really matter what health you are in. So nature has this way of sensing, is it safe? Is this the right time for you to bring a new life into the world? So I'll give you two aspects of this, right? So I tell my team often we are probably in one of the toughest jobs when it comes to medicine because fertility involves all the other systems. But I also say at the same time, it's one of the easiest jobs because this is the only one nature truly cares about. No, so nature doesn't care if a diabetic becomes non-diabetic or not. You're done with, nature saying you're the one eating the rasgullas, you pay the price. I don't know who you are. But nature cares about the next generation. It wants the next baby coming in. It wants the human, evolution to continue. So nature is on your side. But most importantly, you have to align with nature, and then nature is going to let it happen to you naturally. So the second example I often give for this is the maximum number of calls we get from Sepalika in any given month is often from Kashmir. Okay. And it's from young ladies from Kashmir in their 20s who have lost their periods and are suffering with infertility. Okay. And my prescription to most of them is to move to a relative's place in Delhi. Okay. That is how much safety makes a difference. How safe internally the body feels and how ready it is. These are young people at the peak of their hormonal health. Everything seems fine, and they all come with this unexplained infertility diagnosis. They've been to a gynac, the gynac's looked at it, said everything is fine, go back home, try. Then we run a slightly more deeper panel. You see the AM cortisol, you see the stress markers. That tells a different story, right? So you've got stress as a huge component, which may not be Kashmir level for all of us, but most of us in metro cities are carrying a huge, underlying white noise of stress all the time. What are we doing to address it proactively, right? So none of us are taught ways in which this needs to be done, especially at that age. And therefore, we're doing everything. We just follow whatever is the trend. We do intermittent fasting. We do HIIT workouts, those are the more popular, visible things that you do. But to feel emotionally safe, to feel internally without a little tremor, to feel that this is a rest and reproduce state and not a fight, flight, or freeze state, that's not something anybody works on. So people come to us. Another misconception is, here's a big fat file, here's all my test reports, here's what the labs have to say, here's what the blood has to say, here is some radiology. I say, let's put that all aside. Tell me about your life. When do you wake up? What happens in the morning? Are you rushing through breakfast? Are you swallowing your food? Do you remember to chew? What's your break time in the evening? Is your work environment toxic? Do you have friends? What do you celebrate? So they're kind of gobsmacked. They're expecting FSH, LH, AMH discussions. I said, those are all easy do. Nowadays, even an AI will do it for you. But the deep feeling of just aligned with nature, feeling in a rest and reproduce situation, I think people underestimate these sorts of factors. So I'd say those are the big misconceptions people come to us with.
That's so well put. And I was smiling because it's exactly the same thing that I think a lot of other practitioners, it's the same thing, right? Any chronic condition where your body is not feeling safe, you won't heal. The body can't heal or reproduce for that matter. And the other thing I find is, and I don't know whether that's the same thing that you face, is that a lot of people are not even aware that they're living in that kind of stress, right? I mean, we are so disconnected from our bodies. And actually, that's the kind of work that I do in my practice as well, body-wise healing. Especially for women, we cannot afford to be disconnected from our body. Our emotions live in our bodies, so a lot of trauma lives in our bodies at all. So when I have asked so many times, do you have any stress? Yeah, the usual, but they have no clue how their body is doing. So have you faced that? I mean, is that very common?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, it's again, like I said, we are in the same part of the woods, clearly, and we are doing similar work. And that's so heartening to hear somebody else also echo the similar experiences. See, even on a Zoom consult, one can just tell from the body language, right? So, are they safe? Are they feeling relaxed? What is this conversation about? Are they at the edge of the seat? How is the dynamic between the couple, right? So we only work with couples for the most part. We don't like to leave the man out. And many times you can see the body language is laid back in the man, it's upfront with the woman. There's so many cues that are coming through. And again, people don't realize. See, it's like that old story of the toad in the hot water, right? So you put a toad in boiling water in one go and it hops right out. But if you put the toad in the water and then turn on the stove, as the heat is going up, the toad doesn't even realize. It literally gets boiled to death. That's what's happening to a lot of us. Stress is something we are taught to live with. From the time we appear for our high school board exams, you're told this is how life is. Stress to hota hai bhai, this is what you do. This is how you get forward in life. Then your first job, you're the bottom of the totem pole, you get ground. So you think the way to handle it is by partying hard. So work hard, party hard, and that's the youth that you spend. Then somewhere in the middle of that, you start making it to middle level management. Still there is stress. But by this time you've got adjusted to what is like a new normal. It's fine for you to feel that 3 p.m. slump. It's fine for you to drag yourself out of bed in the morning. You don't even remember these things are happening to you, right? And you don't tell yourself because who wants to acknowledge that youth is dead? Nobody wants to do it. So part self-denial and part what we are trained from society. There are so many pockets within the body where you don't feel safe. And there's just stress you're holding, and that produces a biochemistry. That biochemistry is in turn going to turn hormones in a particular direction. So like you rightly said, I practice more infertility, you handle autoimmune with women. All of these are probably have similar things that contribute to this fire that's burning. So absolutely, there is a body disconnect, and connecting people back to the body, just making them, I say, close your eyes, take 3 breaths together. Let's you and I take this breath. Can you feel it going through your nose? Do you realize there's a throat? Do you realize there's a chest? Just put people back into their bodies and they're surprised. It's like they were living just outside of themselves. You put them back in and now they say, Acha kuch ho raha hai. I feel something has happened. So yeah, completely agreed with you.
It's, that's where it actually all starts. That awareness, that's where the shift happens. I mean, that's what I have figured out, that without that awareness, nothing changes, especially for the long run. It might change for a week or two, maybe while they're working with you, but That's it. I mean, then after 6 months, what happens? After 3 months, what happens? Back to square one. So that's amazing to hear. I mean, it's the same everywhere. So tell me, because, I believe that there is, place obviously for conventional medicine, medical treatments, medicines, there's a lot of things that either or, and I don't believe that is the right approach. So there is a, time and place for a medicine, which is, I'm talking about medications and treatments. And of course, there is the approach that we take, which is a more root cause approach, functional medicine, naturopathy. So, specifically when it comes to medical protocols, where do they really help in terms of fertility, and where can they actually end up adding more stress?
Sure. So, I would use IVF, for example, as one of those very specific things within fertility, right? So, IVF was invented or discovered as a technique 43 years ago. And it was basically for a simple condition called blocked fallopian tubes. So, for the viewers who may not know too much about the anatomy, physiology, we'll just do a 1 minute detour. So, there are these ovaries, and each month, one ovary releases one egg in a normal course. That egg gets picked up by these little tubes called fallopian tubes, generally the one that's closer to that particular ovary. So left ovary releases an egg, left fallopian tube picks it up. It has these little finger-like projections, moves it inside itself, right? Now see the beauty of nature. There is a self-selection process. So the husband and wife get intimate, they have intercourse, sperm enters the vaginal passage, swims through the uterus into this little tube, where it must be strong enough to beat all the others and be the first one to reach that egg. Then it fertilizes that egg and life begins inside that fallopian tube. So for the first 3 days of life, the embryo is spending it inside the fallopian tube. Once the brain decides there are no gross defects in this embryo, it then rolls it down into the uterus where it implants and life begins. So day 4, day 5 is when life begins in the uterus. Now, if this little tube, which is 10 centimeters long but only 2 millimeters wide at its narrowest point, gets jammed for some reason, now, no matter how good eggs you have, you may improve your diet, you may do all the other work and you improve your ovulation. So egg quality is fantastic. The man works on himself, improves metabolic parameters, sperm improves, sperm is excellent, but this tube is jammed. Now, nothing will open up this tube for love or money. I've seen all sorts of people claim all sorts of things, except for loose mucus-based blocks that can sometimes be temporary in nature. Any permanent damage to this tube means that you cannot have an egg and a sperm meet. So no embryo can be created. This is exactly what IVF was invented for. So you take the egg out of the lady, you take the sperm out of the man, put that in a petri dish in a lab under certain very controlled conditions, create an embryo. Now you bypass that tube. So you take the embryo and you put it inside the lady. This is a perfect example of where allopathy absolutely shines. So there is a clear structural blockage. There is a need for a procedure, and you do this. And yet, does it mean this is the be all and end all? Absolutely no. Because we have women with blocked fallopian tubes who go for an IVF and come back after it fails 1 or 2 times. The reason it failed 1 or 2 times is either the egg quality wasn't good enough, or the sperm quality wasn't good enough, or the lady was so stressed about the whole thing that multiple good quality embryos, TGT tested embryos, couldn't implant because her cortisol is through the roof. She's so stressed that her body is not ready. So there is a place for integrative medicine. So there are horses for courses. There are times we do have allopaths on staff. We use them where it's needed, but we use it with our eyes wide open, right? So have we done the basics? Is your diet in place? Are you sleeping well? Are you not stressed? Despite all of this, are you not able to conceive? Okay, let's take a look in with allopathic radiology, do an ultrasound, figure out where the problem is. Is there some medicine that can help? Certainly. Even there are herbals that you can use at round 1. If those don't work, then allopathic medicines tend to be stronger. So no one, the joke in our office is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So you literally keep allopathy in the room as well. But our allopaths know very well that we have to work on root causes. And the root cause doctors know the allopaths are available. Should we face a structural issue? And that's the combination that I believe works best.
Yes, that's the best of both worlds, actually.
Sure.
Using what required where. So you mentioned some of the, cortisol, high levels of cortisol. You talked about stress. So what are some of the lifestyle habits that actually help fertility? So what are the things that, couples and maybe especially women, if at all, should be moving toward?
Sure. So I would, put on top of the list basically sleep. For me, sleep is imagine 8 hours at night, 8 to 10 hours at night. You're sleeping with your eyes closed. You're lost to your senses. It is the most vulnerable point in a human being's life, right? So when we used to sleep, even when we slept on trees, animals could come and eat us. And yet this behavior has been preserved. Why would nature preserve it if it weren't so crucial for the remaining 16 hours of life? Right? So all the hormonal repair, all the cortisol work, all the reproductive hormones are all maximum secreted during that rest and digest period. That nighttime sleep is so, so crucial. And we get so many women these days, oh, I sleep at 1, and they think 1 is early enough, and they're like, but I get 8 hours, I wake up at like, and so you're like, okay, not again, we don't believe in prescriptive medicine. You know how we work. It's a health coaching model. It's similar to what you do. First, understand the life of that person, right? Every habit the person has is there because it solves a problem for them. Sleeping at 1 a.m. solves something for this lady. And I'd be foolish to take it away without trying to understand that, right? So maybe she's in the kitchen till 10 o'clock and this is her only me time. So if I don't give her an alternative to me time and I take away just the 1 p.m., it's only going to add to her stress. It's not really solving her problem. So we understand in depth why, but we start moving it half an hour sooner. So gently start trying 12:30 the first week. Try at 12, what's happening? Now, do we need a little bit of homeopathic support or something? I just toss and turn in the bed. Now, we do all the normal breathing, the pada, abhyanga, all the things which are non-medical in nature. Let's try all of that. Cool the room, absolute darkness, no devices for 1 hour. Do all of that. Even then, if you need a little bit of help, do it. But number one for me is sleep. Circadian rhythm as close to 10 p.m. getting to bed, as close to 6 a.m. except for winter, etc. when you wake up. This is what we find generally works for people to establish a metabolic clock that works well, a circadian rhythm that works well. 1 hour plus minus for owls and whatever eagles and all of that, that one can do. But I've not found anything in our own practice or in medical literature that there are people naturally meant to sleep at 3 a.m. There's nothing, only health detriments we see, whether it's night workers like nurses and fire engine and things like that. So yeah, so sleep is my number one go-to for everybody.
And that's so true what you say. And actually, this is the same thing that I have heard so many times that, I'll give you the same example that I sleep at 3 and I get up at 11 because I can and I don't. I was like, I'm getting my 8 hours. I mean, this is something I've drummed into my children because our society doesn't really prioritize sleep, right?
Sure.
And I have teenage children and they're not so young anymore. So they listen to all other influencers or whatever. I mean, social media here and there. Good thing is there is some awareness which is getting created, but it's still that I need to just get 8 hours. I think no, you don't just need 8 hours. You need 8 hours in accordance with nature, right? That's the important thing. So it's not about sleeping. So I think that's one big point that you made, and I'm so glad that you talked about sleep because we don't talk about it enough. And you can do everything else, but if you don't get this right,
yes,
you will probably don't see changes. You don't see improvements which last at least. So, this process, and of course, I've only heard it from others who have been through the whole process, and, you take a couple through this fertility journey. So how do you help from your side, couples and, especially maybe the women to stay grounded, to stay hopeful, because, there's so many of them go through failed IVF, treat IVF or otherwise treatment. So how do you help them in that sense?
Yeah. See, I often feel that the first step is just for them to understand the basics. Most people come in thinking they've already failed. First you tell them that that's not the case. Here are just hard statistics. I just throw numbers at them. Just understand, especially miscarriages. Women after miscarriages are distraught. They don't realize that only 3 out of 10 pregnancies make it to live birth. This is Stanford Institute of Medicine, and they have a repeated pregnancy loss committee, which is multidisciplinary, and this is their statistics worldwide. If you have 10 pregnancies confirmed by home pregnancy or beta HCG testing, only 3 make it to live birth. That's the amount of rejection rate in human beings. Look at us at traffic lights and we don't behave like we are the acme of evolution, but there you have it. Nature doesn't want babies which may be a burden on themselves or their parents being born. So many miscarriages are on account of DNA errors which have crept in, which can be improved in the next pregnancy, but this one wasn't meant to be. So this whole guilt needs to be removed from from people's minds that they're somehow broken. And remember, to be a parent is such a hardwired instinct. And to have that taken away from you or to feel defective in that area is very, very deep. It cuts too close to the bone. So the first thing we do is tell people that they're not alone, statistically or otherwise. And then we say, all right, now let's take a look at what have we done till now, right? What are the scientific things we could have done? Have we done all of them? Often in that we discover gaps which are about the basic foundations. You're not eating well, you're not sleeping on time, you're not doing stress management, you have hormones, vitamins in gaps. There are things that are happening. So again, you point out to them how those filling those gaps helps. But most importantly, Anandita, the way that, this is something that we learned over time, and it's only by running a clinic, so you get into something like fertility. It's a very technically oriented field. Even if you try to be holistic, everybody's talking AMH, antral follicle count, stimulation, follicular studies. It's very difficult not to get caught up in this kind of storm, to get into the eye of it. That's when at some point we stepped back and we said, this is still a human being, right? And this is still a person who comes with their own preferences, their likes, their dislikes, and they've been so disempowered by a system that says this day this injection, that day that scan, this day that. Oh, whole life gets regimented like you've been put back in school or something. It's just a very disempowering experience. So instead, we use a health coaching model. Every intake call begins with open-ended questions. Every review call has to start with good news. Tell me what's working in your life. There's enough time for what's not working in your life. The minute you see a doctor at the other side, a therapist at the other side, you want to say, but वो digestion अभी तक ठीक नहीं है. So, you say, forget, we'll get to the digestion. I'm not going to escape it or trying to, गोल गोल नहीं करूंगा आपको. But first tell me, we did these 5 things. Tell me one thing that worked for you in this week. It could be because of me or not because of me. Doesn't matter. This week, I had a wonderful lunch with my long lost cousin. Let's start there. The framing changes, right? There's a difference in the energy. And this is something we inculcate throughout the program. You come in with, you focus on what's working, and slowly you begin growing that area, grow the light till the darkness has no place. This is like super important. Of course, the nuts and bolts of it are, here's a diet that works for you. Maybe this particular grain, whole world is saying quinoa is good, but guess what? It's too hard a grain for you. You can't digest quinoa. So our nutritionist will handle that. Do you need a supplement for diminished ovarian reserve? Your AMH is very low. Are there herbs that truly help that? What is the evidence? So we'll make sure that those herbs are dialed in by our doctor. What's your follicular scan looking like? So we take care of those aspects. Acupressure is again, one of those things that we believe deeply can affect energy networks and how energy or chi flows in the body can be influenced with acupressure. So that's one of the other pedals that we use. So we call it a 5-pedal program. So we do diet, we do dietary supplements, we do acupressure, we do lifestyle changes, and we use Ayurveda. So this is like a complete approach that we would take with a couple.
And it makes me so happy to hear this as you know that I follow the principles of health coaching. I'm a health coach myself. And especially what you just mentioned about what's going well, that struck out because I don't see many practitioners following it. It's the principles of positive psychology, which tells us that, if you start with what's going well, you can actually stay motivated to keep going, to stay on track, to get back on track when you slip and not give up hope. And I think the other thing that I think you hit the nail on the head is that the medical system can be very disempowering. So even when I work with my clients, it's all about things like taking charge of your healing, right? And actually, when I also teach health coaching in a few places, so what happens is that, the number one question that I hear from other practitioners is that how do I make my patients do this? I said, you can't make anyone do anything. That's where the coaching comes in. That's where the approach that you are talking about comes in, right? How can we do this together? You said that, you're not alone. So that is the beautiful partnership, I think, I would call it rather than anything else. And of course, you're guiding them. Of course, you're telling them about the supplements. And of course, you're telling them about the hormones and educating. and each has its own role. So this five petal approach, it's amazing. And so, in fact, in my practice, I talk about it in terms of the body-wise healing framework, which is, so we all have our own modalities, but it all boils down to the same thing, I think, right? It's
Okay.
about the root cause and connecting. So, the audience who typically listens to this show or other my Substack are women. So while, of course, we're talking about couples, the woman is the one who, goes through most of this journey, especially in terms of fertility. So what is one small shift, like as a couple, that they can make together right today or right this week, or the woman can make that, that can support her hormonal balance and fertility?
I would say the number one thing is possibly a shared meal, right? So it's an example that we give our patients. So many families are nuclear now. Many couples are living by themselves, either for career, they've gone to another city, set up home by themselves. Meal times are now literally spent each one on the phone, one hand on the plate, and that's how it goes. And there's no real bonding beyond just chores, right? So it's like, hey, have you told the driver that? And did you tell the maid that? And it's very, very functional, right? So even more so once we have kids, but even before, right? It's not, it's very, we forget what it was that we got married to each other for, so eating a meal consciously, right? So that can be a beautiful two-way sort of, it can
Connect.
two benefits, and it's a lovely way to connect, right? So it's food that's been cooked with love, it's arrived at the table, you've both worked hard for it, you put food on the table, and now you finish that meal within 9 minutes. So our usual thing to patients is, at least 2 digit tak to khana khao. At least, take it to 10 minutes, right? So we make them chew their food. It bores them to death. I say at least one meal a day, try it. आप 16 बार start करो. Don't try 32 times mouthful for every teeth. Do half. Do 16 ka chewing. If you chew your food 16 times and you swallow it, you realize what taste is there in the food. The nutrition gets absorbed better because digestion begins in the mouth. Amylase is already working over there. And you understand when you're full, you're not gobbling or eating for emotional comfort. And if you truly make it a time for laughter and sharing what happened with each other, and kind of almost unburdening before sleep time, which is coming, you've shared the day's happenings with each other. If you can do that without having to resort to a digital device, to my mind, that's a very nice shared space for the couple. And yeah, that's something that we try with a lot of couples, and they come back with all sorts of endearing stories. Is bar humne candle light kiya, and we went back to feeling all romantic about it, and he played, he put on our favorite CD from college, and all those things. I think it's a fantastic way of connecting again. And see how true it is. Eventually time will tell when we have all the devices that can see these things. But literally in South India, when they cast a horoscope, they say, the guy casting the horoscope writes, I am noting the birth time of the child after removing 3 months he spent above the father's head before conception. Okay. So it's said that you attract the kind of soul that you want by your will, by your presence. Your wanting to be a parent is what brings that soul into your life. And the kind of presence with which you're able to attract that energy brings in the right kind of soul into your life, is basically what they say. Now, whether this is, like I said, this could all be very metaphorical and magical sounding, but it is true that couples who are able to feel connected to each other and they feel ready truly to start a family, we just find that they conceive easier, right? So the mechanics of it, leave it to the likes of us. We're here to help you. The doctors are there. They'll do whatever is needed on the mechanical parts. Of course, you're participating and you're not disenfranchised. But they often ask, what more can I do? What more? As if saying, can I walk an extra kilometer? Can I eat one less roti? And my point is, those are all not things you need to do. We are managing those parts. You're sorted. 1 kilometer more, one roti less will not make a difference. But this mind is all yours. This state of being is all yours. So if you can get into that couple ready to attract a family, ready to start a family, maybe dinner is a good idea. For others, it may be a long drive. For still others, it may be a movie, whatever floats your boat. But get away from devices and spend some we time, us time. Don't try to take pictures. Don't try to post it on Insta saying, with my bae. Don't do that. Just, do what's needed with each other.
That's such a beautiful example, and it resonates so much with what I believe in as well. Because the connection starts way before the bedroom. I mean, it doesn't start in the bedroom. It starts
Sure.
in the day, in the morning. And just to give you an example, my husband and I have been married for almost 25 years now, 23 years now, so in another couple of years. And one thing we started during COVID, and we have two kids, so you can appreciate after children, all these things become, even more difficult to do for a long period of time till the children grow up. Then there's this phase. So we started this thing about because we were all stuck at home having, and we like 1 cup of coffee, like black, nice, strong coffee. We have 1 cup, but started having that coffee together during COVID because, we were stuck at home. And we've continued ever since because we work for ourselves. We don't work in a 9 to 5 job, so we can do that. But that's our connection time. And in fact, it's happened that I've been traveling or he's been traveling. We'll have coffee on Zoom.
Ah, lovely. That is so nice.
Yeah. So, anything works, right? It doesn't have to be this. It
Yes.
doesn't have, it can be
Yeah.
mean, like what you said. But I love how you put it together because I also truly believe that these are the things that you cannot outsource to someone else.
Absolutely.
Everything else can be taken care of. As you rightly said, one extra roti, one less roti, low carbs, high carbs, all that is fine. And we'll focus on that. We'll focus on the meds, or the supplements. We'll focus on the food, diet. But this you cannot outsource to anyone else. This
Yeah.
you have to figure out what's going to work for you. So this connection.
Oh.
So this is such a beautiful place to end our conversation. But I just want to also, ask you: is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to share before we end the conversation?
No, I think, this was a very beautiful conversation. I've participated in several podcasts, which are often on the more technical side of things. I'm very, very happy to have been able to, share this with somebody who truly practices this themselves as well, for me to hear an echo, right? So we all look for our tribe, and it's wonderful to hear this and to share it with your listeners and your tribe. So I think if there's a take home message, not that we missed anything, it is to truly not give up hope, and stay focused on the good things in your life. It's beyond a bumper sticker. It's not just some trying being trashed out. What you repeat to yourself and what you focus on is what you grow. That there is no doubt about. I think all of us know that at a very instinctual level. So if you are facing any fertility struggles, etc., ask yourself what's going right. If you're still getting regular periods, if you're still not in great amounts of pain, if you're somebody who's otherwise into fitness, if you're even getting a daily walk every day, if you're drinking enough water, even that little dot of light is enough. Start there and it'll grow into one giant, lit up room and stuff will work out. So yeah, that's about it.
That's lovely. And I think you mentioned that lightness will, I think drown out the darkness. And
Yes.
we need both actually. Without the
Yeah.
without darkness, we can't see the presence of light. It's both, and both have its role to play. So thank you so much, Mahesh. If Sepalika is on Instagram. So if you, so I'll be sharing them in the show notes, etc. But if you want to share any particular website or
Nothing. We are very active on Insta, and that's become our main mode of reaching out to people. And so Sepalika Fertility is our handle. We're also on LinkedIn, of course. These days websites seem to be less and less in favor. Most people seem to want apps or, doing stuff on their phone. So the website's not really, that singing and dancing, but the Sepalika Fertility Insta is a good way to get in touch with us, should anybody need to. And LinkedIn as well. Sharda and I are both there on our personal profiles and as Sepalika Fertility.
Okay, and I'll share all that in the show notes. Thank you, Mahesh, for a lovely conversation. I'm sure that many couples, especially women who have who've been dealing with this particular journey, fertility, infertility for that matter, and hormonal issues, they will have got such a beautiful, what should I say, message out of this, and it would give them hope as well, because hope is something that a lot of people sort of give up on, actually, like you said. So thank you once again, Mahesh.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anandita. It's such a pleasure. Thank you for creating this platform to have these chats. And, we haven't prepped at all. This was a completely free-flowing chat. So thank you so much for that spontaneity as well. All the very best to you.
Thank you.